By April 1945, Germany had lost the war. Berlin was surrounded. The Soviet army was less than a mile from Hitler's bunker. Explosions shook the city day and night. The sound of artillery echoed through the underground corridors. Inside the bunker, the atmosphere was grim. Many of Hitler's closest associates knew the end was near. Some discussed escape plans. Others prepared for suicide. Hitler himself appeared exhausted. Years of stress and war had taken a visible toll on him. Witnesses described him as physically weakened and emotionally defeated. Yet he continued holding military meetings. Maps were spread across tables. Orders were issued. But everyone knew the truth. Germany could no longer win. On April 29th, Hitler married Eva Braun. The ceremony was brief. Only a handful of people attended. Hours later, he dictated his final political testament. Then he prepared for death. On the afternoon of April 30th, 1945, the atmosphere inside the bunker was unlike anything the remaining staff had experienced before. The war was ending. The sounds of battle were now incredibly close. Soviet troops were fighting only a short distance away. The ground shook from artillery impacts. Dust occasionally fell from the bunker ceiling. Everyone understood that Berlin would soon fall. Shortly after lunch, the wartime leader met with several members of his staff. He shook hands with them one by one. Some witnesses later described the moment as strangely calm. Others remembered a sense of dread. Many realized it would be the last time they ever saw him alive. A few final conversations took place. A few final instructions were given. Then came the moment that would become one of the most discussed events of the 20th century. The wartime leader and his wife entered a private room. The door closed behind them. Outside, several people waited. Minutes passed. The bunker remained silent. Then a single gunshot echoed through the underground corridors. Nobody inside needed an explanation. Everyone understood what had happened. After a short delay, the door was opened. Inside the room, the wartime leader was dead. His wife was dead beside him. According to eyewitnesses, he had taken his own life. His wife had died from poison. The war inside the bunker was over. But the story was far from finished. The people who remained immediately began carrying out previously prepared instructions. The bodies were wrapped in blankets. They were carefully carried through the bunker corridors. Outside, Berlin continued to burn. Smoke covered much of the city. Artillery fire continued in the distance. The group moved quickly. They reached a small area near the bunker entrance. There, containers of fuel had already been prepared. Large amounts of gasoline were poured over the bodies. The goal was simple. The wartime leader had always feared his body being captured and displayed by his enemies. He wanted no grave, no monument, no public remains. Only destruction. As Soviet forces moved ever closer, the fuel was ignited. Flames rose into the air. Smoke drifted across the ruined government district. Several witnesses later recalled standing silently as the fire burned. Some saluted. Others simply watched. The regime that had once controlled much of Europe was ending in front of their eyes. For hours, the remains continued to burn. The process was repeated several times. More fuel was added. The objective was to leave as little evidence as possible. As darkness approached, Soviet troops were drawing nearer. The final defenders of Berlin were running out of time. Many of the people who had witnessed the event would soon attempt to escape the city. Others would be captured. Some would later spend years being questioned about what happened inside the bunker. Because despite the witnesses, despite the gunshot, despite the fire, one enormous question remained. Where was the proof? Within days, Soviet soldiers would enter the bunker and begin searching for answers. And what they found would create decades of mystery. In the first days of May 1945, Soviet troops fought their way through the ruins of central Berlin. The city was almost unrecognizable. Entire blocks had been reduced to rubble. Government buildings were heavily damaged. Smoke still rose from many parts of the city. The war in Europe was nearly over. Yet one question remained unanswered. Where was the wartime leader? The Soviet Union wanted proof of his fate. The answer carried enormous political importance. If he was alive, the war might not truly be over. If he had escaped, the consequences could be unpredictable. Therefore, Soviet commanders ordered an immediate investigation. Special military intelligence teams arrived at the government district. Their mission was clear: search every building, examine every document, question every witness, leave nothing unexplored. The underground headquarters quickly became the center of attention. Soviet investigators carefully entered the bunker complex. Inside, they found abandoned rooms. Military maps still covered the walls. Personal belongings remained scattered across desks. Documents lay on floors. The final days of the regime seemed frozen in time. Every room told part of a story. Investigators moved slowly through the corridors. Photographs were taken. Evidence was collected. Anything that could explain the final hours was carefully documented. At the same time, surviving witnesses were being located. Secretaries, military officers, communication staff, guards, anyone who had been inside the bunker during the final days. The interviews began almost immediately. Many witnesses described similar events. They spoke about the final meetings, the final documents, the final farewell, and the gunshot. Again and again, investigators heard the same story. The wartime leader had died inside the bunker. His body had been taken outside. Fuel had been poured over the remains. A fire had been started. Yet witness statements alone were not enough. The Soviet leadership wanted physical evidence. Without proof, rumors could spread. Without proof, uncertainty would remain. The search continued. Days later, investigators made an important discovery near the underground headquarters. Evidence suggested that something significant had happened near the bunker entrance. The investigation intensified. For Soviet intelligence officers, this was no longer a routine military operation. It had become one of the most important investigations of the century. Every report was reviewed. Every witness statement was compared. Every detail was examined. The world was waiting for answers, and those answers appeared to be hidden somewhere beneath the ruins of Berlin. But despite all the witness testimony, one problem remained. There was still no undeniable proof. Investigators needed evidence that could survive fire, destruction, and chaos. That evidence would come from an unexpected place: the teeth. During the investigation, Soviet authorities recovered dental fragments believed to belong to the wartime leader. At first, the discovery seemed insignificant. But investigators quickly realized its importance. The face had been destroyed. The remains had been heavily damaged. Traditional identification methods were impossible. Yet dental records told a different story. The wartime leader had undergone extensive dental treatment during his life. His teeth contained unique features: bridges, crowns, metalwork, details that were difficult to duplicate. Investigators located individuals familiar with those dental records. Descriptions were compared. Drawings were examined. The results pointed toward the same conclusion. The dental evidence matched. For Soviet investigators, the mystery appeared solved. But history would take a different path. Instead of immediately revealing all evidence, Soviet authorities kept much of the investigation secret. The decision created confusion, and confusion created rumors. Soon, stories began spreading across Europe. Some claimed the wartime leader escaped Berlin. Others believed he fled by aircraft. Some insisted he escaped by submarine. Years later, stories appeared placing him in Argentina. Others claimed he lived somewhere in South America under a false identity. Books were written. Newspapers published sensational stories. Conspiracy theories spread around the world. Yet despite decades of speculation, one thing never changed. No credible evidence ever appeared. No verified photographs, no verified documents, no confirmed witnesses, only stories. Meanwhile, historians continued studying the available evidence: the witness statements, the bunker records, the investigation reports, the dental evidence. Again and again, researchers reached the same conclusion. The wartime leader died in Berlin in April 1945. The mystery, however, did not completely disappear. For decades, parts of the investigation remained classified. This secrecy kept public interest alive. Then, many years later, modern researchers were finally allowed to examine surviving evidence. The results were remarkably clear. The dental fragments matched historical medical records. Independent experts reached the same conclusion. Modern forensic analysis supported the findings of the original investigation. The answer had remained the same all along. The wartime leader did not escape. He did not disappear. He did not begin a new life in another country. His story ended beneath the ruins of Berlin. Yet perhaps the most important lesson is not about one man. It is about war itself. The Second World War changed the lives of hundreds of millions of people. Entire nations were transformed. Cities were destroyed. Families were separated. Millions never returned home. Even today, nearly 80 years later, the events of 1945 continue to fascinate people around the world. Because history is more than dates and battles. History is a collection of human stories. Stories of power. Stories of fear. Stories of survival. And stories of consequences. The final days inside that underground bunker became one of the most famous endings in modern history. But the questions, investigations, and mysteries that followed became a story of their own. A story that continues to be studied to this day. And now, after decades of speculation, the evidence points overwhelmingly in one direction. The mystery has an answer. And that answer lies in the ruins of Berlin, in the records of investigators, and in the fragments of evidence that survived one of history's most destructive wars. What do you think? Did the evidence convince you? Let us know in the comments. And subscribe for more forgotten stories from history.